So during all this COVID opportunity, when people are at home, they're making bread. And they're
Yeah, you
making
see that?
sourdough bread.
It's
They're
a
making
lot of
sourdough bread. But the thing about sourdough bread is that you need a starter kit. You need a starter dough. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about projections because I'm about to give you the starter dough. So some of this training is going to sound a little bit like the 1966 training. Say we have a candidate now that we want to project. When you're in the profile, after you've done all of your actions in Salesforce, you're going to want to go down and fill in all the stuff that would develop a 680. You shouldn't have to retype a brand new 680 every time someone's going to come down the MEPS. If you build all the data in Pride first, Pride can build your 680 for you. Pride can start your 2807s for you. And as we've known, it can continue on for the 1966 and other forms. Remember, if you use your starter dough, putting everything in Pride, everything's going to start falling in line a lot better. So let's go through a projection real quick right now. So we have this candidate, and we're going to say that it's a candidate from Columbus, and they built most of the profile, but I'm going to go into the education. This is an 11S, so they haven't graduated. I haven't seen transcripts, and I'm going to put no on the algebra and the trigonometry unless I see transcripts proving that they've completed those courses. They're still haven't graduated, so we're going to do the 11 and the S. For 11S's, you put a future graduation date, an expectation. So we have, late May to 2020 for this candidate. And it's not a mid-year education. And then I wouldn't expect any college at this time unless they're dual enrolled. So I'm going to put no's for that and then hit save. And then on the general information, I'm going to go down, single and zero. If their all their family members are citizens, if their family members were originally American citizens, active non-prior service on the recruit type, their citizenship as U.S. citizen, all the standard stuff. This one didn't have a driver's license. We would like to get an email address. We would like to get a phone number. Some of that information crosses over from Salesforce, but what this forces you to do is make sure that that data crossed over correctly. I've seen some phone numbers cross over in a pretty strange way. You probably have too. Religious preference. This DEP PQS code, I know people haven't been filling that out. Until they're actually in DEP, you can go ahead and mark that as not started. Submarine volunteer and such. The addresses, places of birth, all that stuff. Hit save. Now, at this point, you can start building your forms and building your forms within Pride. Now, they went ahead and did a 680 outside of Pride and loaded that up, which is perfectly acceptable. But think of it this way. If you have a driver's license number, you put it in Pride in the general tab, that is the only time that you'll have to re-put that on any form because all the other forms are going to develop for you. So we're trying to make things a little bit efficient. The other thing is that if the data is here, when we start to transfer this data over for the projection, it is going to help push from Pride to MERS, which is your folks behind the scenes system that they work. They push it over to MERS. And then if the data is incomplete, then we start to have challenges. So you start building all of the stuff in Pride. So your 2807 and 680. This can be for night testers. This can be for OPO candidates. The screen will look a little different for OPO candidates, but all of the same stuff. I mean, a lot of the same things that we need for building a projection is going to be there for you. And then the one thing that some people seem to miss that prevents us is the recruiter. And if we don't see a recruiter here, we're going to just take whoever the DOD ID number for whoever loaded up the forms. So in this case, we have a 680 printed already. And we're going to search by the DOD ID number. And this one, we're going to set the recruiter. Because that recruiter information is part of your 680 and your 1966. So that's data that gets pushed over to MERS as well. And then what you'll also note, this section is pretty good at being filled out. When you go to medical down here in the pre-screen info, at a minimum, this is more of a hurdle, is we have Navy, regular component, and state screened. And hit hit save on that. So now, at that point, go ahead and do your alert. So the alert is that email system with inside Pride. Now I'm going to put the date for the date that they want them projected for May 4th. And using our naming convention, I'm going to put PROJ for projection. And this person didn't need a test because they had a high school test poll. But I'll put high school test poll, full phys/dep. Now in the message remarks, a lot of times we have people who are retesters, same day processors, but you know that sometimes they've taken a PyCat test or this is their initial test or the high school test poll. In the message, I would actually prefer if you put what type of test, because it's going to change our coding for how we do the projection. So in this case, this person was a high school test poll, so I'm just put HSP in the message. And then for this, since I'm giving the training, I'm gonna put the user as myself. As the person who's going to receive this particular alert. Now, let me show you what happens on the other side. So this is where part of the training comes to support our processors that are helping with scheduling. Go to my alert dashboard, and I pull up this projection, and it takes me straight to the applicant. Now that I'm in the applicant, I'm going to check to make sure that all those sections that you did for us together are in here. So I'm going to first, because we're going to require to build a record with our MERS MEPCOM staff, we're going to print the 680 and the 2807, which I have already done for this particular case. Now, when I go back to manage applicant, the first thing as a processor I want to do is I actually want to open up the name. I want to make sure that the name is in all caps and that the MEPS ID is projected for the correct MEPS. So this one's A20. Sometimes this is one thing that you might have to switch so that we're getting the projections to the correct MEPS. And then more, it's consistency of data that we want to check that the name is in all caps. We sometimes have to change that and get it correct. We're going to make sure that the name is correct to our supporting documentation, which is the Social Security number. And we'll hit save. At this point, I am able to go to projection. Now this is a little bit what a projection screen. I know it's not going to look clear for this training, but we're going to want the date, and we're making this for the 4th of May, and we're going to put that as processing in the arrival date. Arrival time is actually not a hindrance having that. Now, is it ASVAB requested? No. Is it enlist with a student ASVAB? In this case, yes, but the score I already checked was crossed over, so I don't have to redo that this time. Now we mark as a projection, and we are doing a physical requested. So this is a full phys. We're going to mark the travel as a government vehicle. We're going to mark the processing as a DEP-in. I'm also going to request lodging because they're going to stay at the hotel the night before. Any extra remarks, I might put that this was a high school test poll. But the score, I know that the score is over already. Just so you know, if I did say enlist with student ASVAB, that's when it'll give me that chance. Now, for the processor, we're going to hit manual, and this is what's going to start building the projection. And then I'm also going to hit submit. Now, at this point, when I hit submit, it put in the record into a waiting QA status. So then when they're on deck, the processors will be able to involve themselves with the record, making sure that the data was correct. We're going to work some other tabs that are not always that we don't expect that the recruiters will work with. We're also going to work with any waivers and items of that part. Also, since I'm here, if I'm working projections for the day, I'm actually going to write down the social, and that at the end of the day, my little pad, I'm going to take this paper out and put it in the recycle. But because I want to make sure that the data did successfully transfer over to MERS. So I'm going to go to my MERS system, and this takes a little bit of time, but it's projected manually in MERS. I'm getting a true response here. And this is where I actually get to release you. I think if we get the starter dough right, building this bread is going to work out so much better. Like I said, you're going to see a little redundancy for the 1966 training, but if you've done this, you don't have to do that phase of the 1966 training. You just continue building the 1966 from Pride. So remember, Pride can be your best friend for building all of these forms, all of the forms that you're going to wind up doing them while they're in the DEP process, such as like the sexual assault, the fraternization, even building the page 13s that you need for the nuclear program. Those are there. You can start building it from Pride. That way you don't have all those blank missing name and socials at the bottom. And we'll talk about how to properly format a page 13 in a follow-on training. I'm hoping to do a few of them today. Otherwise, let's get this bread baked and we'll get things moving. The last thing I want to do is that if we're using Pride as our repository for all of these big forms, we're hoping to lighten up your emails and our emails and prevent PII spillage. I do not want you to email these forms unless you are specifically directed to do so. Please have these forms built in Pride, loaded in Pride, and we'll work from there. If you send us an email, it should only be about a notification or a conversation. We should start to minimize and not have a lot of these big attachments. So success out there in the field. I know this is a trying time. We're going to get there. And I thank you.